Well, we're rapidly approaching the holidays. It's at our doorstep. And this is the time to begin to discuss suicide because the numbers are generally up during the holidays. Joining me now is Alan Ross of the Samaritans Suicide Prevention Center, or Samaritans NYC. He's executive director, and he's here to discuss giving the gift of life with your being able to volunteer and save a life. Hello there, Alan. How are you?
How are you today, Denise?
Fine, thank you. Talk to me about the holidays and what happens with numbers when it comes to suicide.
Well, certainly I think, as we all know, the holidays can be a wonderful time for people, but they can also be very stressful, can be disappointing, they can be filled with stress and anxiety. And one thing that happens to a lot of people is they think everybody else is doing well, is happy and healthy, and they're being left out. The amount of people that feel they're being left out is probably as many people who are doing well, so it's a little bit of a misconception on our part, but certainly holidays can bring a lot of stress and anxiety and bring out other concerns, feelings, health problems that might have been dormant or not that obvious to us previously.
Where are the numbers now? I know that numbers are creeping up every day for veterans, but what other groups of people should we be even more concerned about?
Well, I think in all honesty, we have to be concerned about everyone. One of the points we make at Samaritans when we do suicide prevention training is that suicide proves the universality of men and women, that everyone, no matter what your age or race or culture or sexual identity or religious belief or economic standing, everyone at some point in their life can be overwhelmed, feel helpless and hopeless, and it can lead to self-destructive and even suicidal behavior. So it's across the population, and as you said, suicide has been increasing for the last 10 years. Right now, we're seeing greater increases amongst young females than we were with males. So we're concerned about that. We're concerned about our young Hispanic and young Asian females in our school system. As you mentioned, we're concerned about veterans, but we're also concerned about just middle-aged and older white males who actually are the population that dies from suicide more than any other group.
Well, this is really scary to hear all of those groups that are succumbing to depression. Now, what your organization wants to do, you need volunteers. You need people on the phones to take those calls, but you just don't do that overnight. You need to be trained, and you have a training session coming up.
We have a training that starts in December 1, and as you're saying, Denise, I was originally a hotline volunteer with Samaritans. That's how I began my involvement. We're finding it harder and harder to get the kind of person that's going to be effective working on the 24-hour crisis hotline. It takes a special kind of person. You have to be focused, and you have to be motivated, and most importantly, you have to have a sense of responsibility. This isn't, and not that work isn't good, but this isn't going to a soup kitchen on Thanksgiving. This isn't helping people paint a house. This is once a week. You've got to be counted on, and the work is both demanding but tremendously fulfilling.
That's interesting, because there are times when people think, oh, it's only one time a week. What's the big deal? They can call Martha to fill in for me. And you would say to that,
you're fired. We don't allow people, this is a 24-hour crisis hotline with the only service in New York, 24 hours a day, staffed entirely by volunteers. You have to be dependable. You own your shift. That doesn't mean if you have an emergency or something, but you've got to be someone who steps up, steps in, has initiative and motivation.
Now, when you're training, what are the two top lessons that people have to learn before they get to those phones?
One thing is that you don't solve other people's problems for them, that it's not about problem solving, it's not about giving advice. Everybody wants to give advice. Less than 25% of people who start our program actually make it through because they think they're just going to tell people, be happy, have hope, You can't lecture someone out of depression or distress. So it's overcoming your own inclination, and the other aspect is actually advancing and enhancing your communication skills. You'd be surprised to learn the less than effective, to be diplomatic, manner that most people use to communicate with one another.
Give me an example.
Well, we tend to go, don't you think it will be a good idea to talk to someone about that? A close-ended statement that has a judgment in it. You should talk to someone, as opposed to, you said you're upset and having a hard time. How have you been dealing with it? Giving the person the opportunity to get their stuff out, the kind of the pressure release that comes from communication. We sit in the back seat, not in the front.
Alan, what's the phone number that people should use to call and sign up? And if it's not by phone, how else do they do it?
Sure, they can call 1-877-SUICIDE and leave their name, address. The message will tell you what information to leave. Or you can go to our website, SamaritansNYC.org, press on the button that says volunteer, and there's a form you can fill out right there that will start the process.
And that's really important that we repeat that, SamaritansNYC.org, because there are a lot of organizations with Samaritan in the name.
That's correct. Thank you for that.
All right. Alan Ross, Executive Director of SamaritansNYC.org. Give the gift of life this holiday season by volunteering. Making a commitment to someone else makes all the difference in the world. Alan Ross, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Janice. Appreciate all your work.
Mother, there's too many of you crying.